Are you looking for inspiration on a daily basis? Well, check out Deal to Heal Teas. With our inspirational teas, you're sure to find something that will inspire you. Just go to dealtohealteas.myshopify.com. That's Deal to Heal Teas. Get some inspiration in your situation. Wear inspirational tea and be inspired all day. That's Deal to Heal Teas at dealtohealteas.myshopify.com. Hey guys, this is Earnest James, host of the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast, and I got a question to ask you. Could you buy me a cheeseburger? Better yet, could you buy me a value meal? Yes? Well, guess what? I don't need a value meal. However, for the cost of a value meal, you can support this podcast to keep us on the air. Just go to Patreon/Deal to Heal podcast and choose any one of the 3 tiers that's available. And if you just want to make a one-time donation, go to Cash App and make a donation to $EJames, the number 418. Make a one-time donation to the Cash App, or again, go to Patreon to support this podcast and keep us on the air. Thanks in advance. Be blessed. Welcome to Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. On this podcast, my guest and I will discuss topics and ways to help us to heal in every area of our lives. I believe that everyone can live a life that is happy, healthy, and whole. So I'm on a mission to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill. Deal with your problem, heal from the pain, and fulfill your purpose. Thanks for tuning in. Let's get to it. Welcome to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. I'm your host, Earnest James, and I believe that everyone can live a life that is whole, healed, and healthy. And therefore, I'm on a mission to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill. Deal with your problems, heal from the pain, and fulfill your purpose. Thank you guys once again for tuning in to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. If you haven't already, please listen, like, subscribe, and share. Subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you guys don't miss any of the episodes, that you can see them in person. Subscribe to our Facebook page so that we'll be able to communicate with you more, give you information on other things that we have coming up, be it workshops, in live events and things like that. And also products that we have coming up, like ebooks and things like that. And subscribe to our Spotify page. Man, I can't even get it out. To the podcast on Spotify. Give us a rating. Tell us how you think we're doing with the podcast. And stay to the end. I'm going to tell you guys how you can win $100 from the podcast, but you got to stay to the end in order to find out that information. Okay, cool. So today, just like any other day, we are blessed with a guest. Coach Nikki, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you? How are you?
I am well. So first of all, let me say thank you for being here. Thank you for being a part. You could have been doing anything, but you took out time to be here with me and my listeners, and I definitely appreciate it. So I want you to know that up front.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here tonight.
No problem. So let's jump right in it. So first of all, tell my listeners who you are and what it is that you do.
Yes. So I am NikkiaTisaby, known as Coach Key with most of my followers and those within my community. I am a spiritual life coach specializing in self-forgiveness and ego coaching. I am the founder of the Human Network, a ministry of restoring traumatic mindsets in youth and young adults in underserved communities. We've been established since 2014, and we've been impacting lives and changing our community one child at a time. So with nonprofit. We specialize in trauma work, and we provide social emotional life coaching. And so it's free to sliding scale for those, because we are in underserved communities. I wear a number of different hats. I am a mental health first aid responder for both adults and for youth. Yes, and I am a mental health professional working as a certified parent peer specialist, which simply means I provide support to parents who have children in the mental health systems, and I help them to navigate that and provide that support that they need for understanding. And mental health has been my passion for over 20 years. And it's from my own personal, my own lived experience that brought me into the industry, and I love it.
Okay. Well, that was one of the questions that I was going to ask you. Also, since you brought it up, what was the journey or the events that happened that led you to even want to go into the field of mental health?
Yes. So to make a long story short, I'll be as brief as I can, but to give a full understanding of how this all started. So let's see. I was bullied in high school, in junior high and high school, and I very low self-esteem, very low self-awareness, wasn't very self-actualized, didn't know who I was. I just subscribed to whatever people called me to be. So my identity was just, mixed up in lies and in rumors, and that caused me to have panic attacks, anxiety attacks, and I almost dropped out of school. I almost didn't graduate from high school because of that. And as a result from being bullied, it left me numb to, let's say, recognizing abuse, as it is verbally. So I ended up transitioning, into adulthood and getting into relationships that were unhealthy because I was being abused physically and verbally in those relationships. And I was so used to being treated poorly. I didn't know the difference. I didn't know any better. And it was around about that time that I also noticed that I would have severe crying spells. And I noticed that, some days I would be paralyzed. I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't move. I could go a day or two without eating. I could go a day or more without having human contact. I would just shut myself off from the rest of the world and just, lay in bed and just really just cry. And I remember when I was in high school, it was my first attempt to, commit suicide to get away from the pain. And so that wasn't successful. Thank God for that. But again, in my adulthood, being in those domestic abusive relationships, it led me down a path of just, alcohol and drugs to numb the pain. And then again, like I said, I'm dealing with these spells, as I was calling them, the crying spells, and the shutting myself off and locking myself in a dark room, not wanting to go out, not wanting to go to work, just not feeling like myself. I managed to get out of those toxic relationships, and I managed to get into a healthy relationship, but I wasn't healed. There was something wrong. There was something that was missing. And one day, this was back in 2000, I think it was 2014. No, 2013, actually. I attempted to take my life again. And I remember that I felt so worthless. I felt alone. I felt like I didn't matter and no one would miss me if I were, if I were gone. I just, I wanted the pain to end. I wanted the pain to stop. I wanted it all to be over. So anyway, so that time wasn't successful at all. But however, coming out of that, after coming out of that and coming out of the hospital, I realized, I said, there's something I need to work. I need help. I really need some professional help. And so I sought therapy. I had to see a therapist when I was in the hospital at that time, and I had to continue to see a therapist. Mind you, years prior to that, I was introduced to a therapist, but I did not latch on or subscribe to the idea of having a therapist because I grew up in a household that didn't recognize mental health. It's like, there's nothing wrong with you. You'll be okay. Just pray about it and the problem will go away. And that's not what happened for me. So I lived in denial for many years before that event actually happened to me the second time around with me attempting, to take my life. I said something has to be done. Something has to change. And so from that point on, I was like, I know that I'm not alone. I said, I know I can't be the only one living in this silent, it was a silent hell. I have to say it is because, with the stigma that's associated with with having a mental condition or a mental distress, you're embarrassed. You don't want to speak your truth because you don't want to be judged because there's so much negativity around it. And I was just like, I can't do that. I have to share my story. I have to share my testimony. I have to be able to change just one person's life and help them to come to terms with the pain that they've had in their past and how, coming to terms with that pain, how it can change your life for the better, and then recognizing the lessons that you learn and use that to help someone else. So all of that, I went through all of that, and that led me to where I am now. So, my mental distress comes in the form of PTSD from the bullying that I endured when I was in high school.
Okay. I want to go back a little bit to one of the things that you said, which I know is very important in our communities, because there is a stigma of mental health. You don't want to say that you're dealing with it, or a lot of times our families don't want to admit that we're dealing with it because we have some things that runs in our families, that's in our bloodline, some disorders, or I don't necessarily want to say disorder, but some mental, issues, should I say, that's actually goes from one generation to another. And, there's some stigmas about it in our families and in our community where, sometimes we jokingly say, that's the crazy uncle, or, that's the crazy auntie or whatever, but nobody never really tries to figure out what's really wrong, or nobody really tries to figure out what's going on with it. And it continues, when we have one or two or three generations where we have a crazy aunt or crazy cousin or whatever, then that should let us know, okay, something is going on, something is going on, something needs to be addressed. And so it's that stigma that we have a lot of times in our communities that we have to break, because mental health is a real thing and we deal with it all the time. And a lot of times it's just that, like you said, with the different family members and not wanting to be looked at, as the crazy person or the crazy member, family member. When the reality of it is a lot of things that we go through, we're all dealing with it. We all just don't show it. Some of us are better at hiding it than others are in our communities and in our households. So as you have begun to work with different ones, what is one of the main things that you think is attributes to that stigma that we have as a culture when it comes to mental health?
Okay, So that was a lot, but what I want to address is that, what you are speaking about is generational trauma,
Mm-hmm.
or generational trauma, transgenerational trauma. It's where, a traumatic experience that's been experienced in the past is brought about, and it's passed on one generation to the next, one generation to the next, and it never goes away because, again, it's never addressed. And it's not addressed, again, because we don't want to be judged. We don't want to be seen as quote unquote unstable. We don't want to be seen as quote unquote crazy. And I think it's because, our culture, even now, even though people are talking a lot about, mental health and shining a light on it, look how long it's taken, and it still has a ways to go. So even though it's something that people are working toward making it a almost like non-taboo subject, it's still a lot that needs to be learned. And so bringing more awareness, learning more about it, through education, and not being afraid to assess yourself, and not being afraid to get the help that you need should you feel like you need it. And I believe, especially, in our community, in our African American community, we spend so much time being the quote unquote strong ones until we feel like, we feel as though we don't need the help. And that's far from the truth. We need more help than I can even begin to talk about, especially when it comes to generational trauma. We've a lot, generational trauma, genocide. I mean, there's a lot that we can deal with that has been passed on, on down the line, especially those who are in those underserved communities where we go in and we help them. They deal with generational trauma in that in those in that social economic dynamic. And so that's where I feel like, for me personally, that's where the need is the most, because most times they don't have access to the resources that they need in order to take care of, their mental conditions. And so it's a work that needs to be done. It's a lot of work that's, involved with getting the job done, of shedding more light on mental health, but it can be done. Just, we just have to be open again to learning, and being open to accepting others for who they are.
Yeah, and I want to go back a little bit to one of the things that you said with us being wanted to be looked at as the strong person, and how even the strong people need help, and I want to even agree with you on that, because I think sometimes those of us who sometimes label ourselves or want to label ourselves as strong and being a strong person really need the most help, because we don't process our emotions or our trauma the way that we should. And actually what we do is we just bottle it up and pack it down and say, I'm strong enough to press forward, but we never process it, right? So then you got all these strong members in your family that is processing, and that's when it goes to, like you said, the generational traumas that's being passed down, because no one is actually dealing with the actually root of the things that's going on with them. They're so busy trying to put forward the facade of being strong in different areas that they're not actually processing what's going on with them, and it's just carrying on from one generation to the next generation. So, and then one of the other things we talked about briefly, you mentioned even the traumas, especially in our underserved communities, especially in the Black communities, and I can speak from a male perspective, it's trauma every day that's being presented to you, on a day-to-day basis. Just of turning on your TV, on one hand, you can see, someone being, shot or something like that, you know, whether it's by, you know, someone else in the community or was by law enforcement or whatever, you see that side. And then there's other issues that, you know, that's going on within your family that you see in person day to day. And so it's like, whether we realize it or not, we're constantly being, you know, faced with different traumas and things that is having an effect on us that sometimes we don't even realize that we're being affected by it, you know, until something happens that triggers something. And then our reaction lets us know, oh, maybe that was something that I was dealing with that, you know, maybe I should have talked about, you know, a little bit more. So what would be something that, you know, or should I say a word of, not advice, I guess, but, you know, something that you may help someone with, or I can't even think about how I'm trying to say it, but someone comes to you, you know, that you know has been through a traumatic event. You know, what would be something that you would tell them or guide them through to help kind of get them started on, you know, facing it and then begin to get through it?
Okay, so one of the things that you mentioned when it comes to the trauma that's experienced in underserved communities, it's a level of trauma that's known as complex or interpersonal trauma. And that's where, you know, the child or the persons are inundated with, you know, abuse on a daily, trauma on a daily basis, you know, gunshots and, you know, the police coming and arguments and domestic violence in the household. And so, you know, it just compounds, and then it becomes something that, you know, it's traumatic in the beginning, but then over time it becomes a norm to them. And so they grow up thinking that this behavior is okay. And then they end up, you know, being in unhealthy relationships. Not all. I'm not generalizing this, but just saying, for example, someone who has become numb to it, they continue to live in that environment and becomes repetitious. So one of the things that I encourage, and this is just the one thing that I encourage, this is just the start. There are different levels, but I start with acknowledging the fact of the trauma, acknowledge the fact that, yes, I've been through a traumatic experience. Yes, it has affected me in this way. And yes, I need help. And so just acknowledging the fact and accepting it and recognizing that it's trauma, because some people are being exposed to trauma and they don't even know that they're being exposed to trauma. They don't know. You know what I mean? So it has to be pointed out. It has to be recognized. And when it's realized and it's brought about and it's actualized, then that's when we can go in and do the work and start processing in order to find some healing and be able to break the cycle.
Yeah. And I know that, you know, when we talk about traumas, you know, and again, we are faced with a lot of traumas on a day-to-day basis from outside sources, you know, but then there are some traumas that we willingly or unwillingly kind of put ourselves in the midst of, you know, even like you said, you know, domestic violence. One of the episodes that released this week was on domestic violence as we're recording this. But so one of the things was that, you know, sometimes we get used to things because it's our regular environment. And so now we are, you know, either allowing ourselves to be the victim. If we want to talk about domestic violence, either we become the victim and we're used to being the victim, or we become the person, you know, that's the offender, you know, in the situation. And sometimes it's because that has become our normal. And when we find ourselves in these situations, sometimes then when we realize what we've done and what we've become, then there comes another thing that I want us to talk about a little bit, is the things that you begin to hold against yourself, the grudges and things of unforgiveness, that you hold within yourself because I should have known better, or I shouldn't have did that, or I should have made a different decision, and I know that's one of the things that you talk about, that you deal with self-forgiveness. And so when someone comes to you, even with those things, is like, okay, how do I forgive myself for some of the mistakes or decisions that I've made? What would be something in that process to help, get someone started in that process?
Yeah, so self-forgiveness in and of itself is the release of, toxic thoughts that you have towards yourself related to past mistakes and self-sabotaging behavior. So for me, one of the things that I did, in the past, I self-medicated because I did not, one, I didn't when you're in a toxic situation, and say, for instance, let's just take my domestic violence abuse situation. Let's talk about that one thing. When you're in it and you love someone, it's going to change. It's going to get better. But as you're dealing with it and as you're processing it and you're just in it, you find ways to numb the pain. And so, I drank. I experimented with drugs just so that I could have something to bring me some solace, because I could at that time see no way out. And so for me, one of the things that I had to do in order to forgive myself, I had to acknowledge the hurt and the pain. So when I work with others, and when we're talking about self-forgiveness, the first thing is to acknowledge the hurt and the pain, and go ahead and give life to it and speak it out and release it. The second thing that I offer them to do is to apologize to themselves for anything that they've done that's been self-sabotaging. And for myself, I had to forgive myself for, drinking too much, and staying in a situation for too long, because I'm hoping and I'm wishing and I'm praying for things to change, but nothing's changed and I'm still there. The next thing I would say is to make amends with the mistakes and the behavior that you have. Make amends with it and draw from it what you've learned. So, okay, I've learned how to recognize, an abusive or narcissistic person right away, and I know what that may lead to. Not saying that that's the case for everyone. I'm saying for me personally, what I look for as a means of self-protection, because what you want to do is you want to give yourself the allowance of not repeating past mistakes. You want to be able to, going into that fourth thing, allow yourself to heal. And as you're healing, you don't want to backpedal. You want to keep moving forward. So when you recognize things as they are with a particular situation, you have to give light to that. You have to have that conversation. Is this something that's going to be beneficial to me, or is it not going to be beneficial to me? And so once you are on the mends and you allowing yourself to heal, you have to be willing to fully embrace who you are now versus who you were before, when you were doing all of those things in the past. You have to be able to release any negative feelings that you have towards yourself from then, and just be able to let it go and allow yourself to heal.
Okay. So you mentioned something. You mentioned it a couple of times, the word mend, and I know that that's part of the name of your network. And I'm big on acronyms. I love acronyms. So it's not actually an acronym, but I do think it's a unique name, even the way that you guys spelled it. So it's not it's human, but not like human, but H-U-M-E-N-D, like mending. So tell me a little bit about the network and even how you came up with the name, because I think that's nice and original within itself.
Thank you so much. So Human, HU''MEND network. So human came from, the name itself came from just what you said. Human, heal, and mend, heal, which is what I'm on a mission to do. I'm on a mission to mend, heal traumatic mindsets in youth and young adults and adults as well, because I do have adult clients. And so the network part of it is because, you know, we comprise ourselves of other organizations that we refer out to for mental health assistance, therapists, psychiatrists, other life coaches. And so we come together and we provide those services to those in underserved communities that sometimes can't afford to get the help that they need. And so that's where the name comes from and how it came to be. Right. And then, like I said, the network itself, the organization itself, we're a 501c3 organization. And we have done, it first started out as just, when I first started back in 2014, it started as just a solo mission, you know, based on the experiences I've had in the past. It started off as a solo mission, just going into local churches and working with people and talking to people. And next thing I know, it turned into a mission. It snowballed into one thing after the next. And now here we are.
All right. So where are you located, actually?
I'm located in Birmingham, Alabama.
Alabama. Okay. So apart from, or should I say, a part of your story is you've written a book, and the book actually deals with self-forgiveness also, right?
It does. Beauty from ashes, finding redemption and self-forgiveness. And it's a book that shares my testimony, but then it's also a workbook to help you with your journey and coming to terms with your testimony and writing your testimony so that you're able to share it with others, so that you can help someone to deal with their problem, heal from it, and fulfill their purpose.
All right. So we're in agreement. I like that. Yeah, and I think that there's so much to be talked about. You know, especially dealing with trauma and our youth, especially now, because I think this whole social media thing adds a whole new level of trauma to our children, because they're exposed to so much more, so much earlier, you know. And I remember I was talking to my son, so my granddaughter, you know, so whatever this is with the new generation, you know, when they had the kids, and the first thing they do, they give them an iPad. You know what I mean? It's like, here's an iPad, you know, to keep them busy. And so she's playing with this iPad one day, and you know, I come over and I'm looking at what she's watching. And so it has these characters like Mickey Mouse or whatever, these little characters. And then they're like really happy and just like bouncing around. And then it clicks and it turns real dark, you know, and now they're like angry and like, you know, doing like all kind of little crazy stuff. And so it's just flipping back and forth. You know, it's like they're happy 1 minute, then they just go to like real angry mode. You know, and I'm like, what are you watching? You know, what are you watching? I'm trying to tell my son, like, you have to be careful, you know, what they're watching. You know what I mean? So you're not paying attention. And, you know, I don't know what the subliminal mind thing, but it was just disturbing for me to watch, you know, and I'm an adult. Because you got like a Mickey Mouse character that's, you know, all happy, and then he just changes. Now he's just all dark and angry and tearing stuff up. And I'm like, what, you know, there's no words. You know, there's no words or anything. It's just music, and it just going back and forth with different characters that's going from this happy point to this really angry point. And I'm like, that can't be good.
No, that can't be good. No, that's not good at all.
Yeah.
But
And so
there's so much out there, so much out there. Just like you said, there's so much out there that they're exposed to. And sometimes we think, just because it's animation that it's good for them, and it's not always good.
Right. Because I remember even when I was young, when they really first start pushing the envelope, I don't know if you even remember what was the guy's name? I can't even think of the cartoon, but I think it was on Fox, with the little Beavis and Butthead.
Oh,
I
Beavis and Butthead.
I think that was when
Oh,
it really started pushing the envelope with
yeah.
the animation, because you had your Bugs Bunny and things like that when they dropped the thing on his head or something like that, but they always got back up, But I think when Beavis and Butthead came out, that's when they really started pushing the envelope on what they, would show. And then it only got worse from there.
Yeah, it got worse for me. Yes.
But yeah, so we definitely, have to be careful with that. Like you said, even though it's animated, and I think that's even worse now, even because now it's transitioned from, cartoons to even the games that they play. Because I remember when my sons first came, when what is the game? The Grand Theft Auto game came out. Yeah. And I remember them wanting it, and I had already seen the things for it. And I'm like, there's no way I'm buying you that. It's like we already deal with, I mean, we don't necessarily live in the hood, but we're still connected because we still know people and we still, go there. So you're already seeing these things, in this environment that you visit from time to time. I moved out of that neighborhood for a reason. You know what I mean? We moved out the hood so that you'll be exposed to, a different lifestyle. But now we're going to buy you something that puts you mentally right back into that place. So even though you're not physically doing it, but mentally you're doing it, through this game or whatever. And I'm like, no, definitely not.
Yes. Yeah, that was a good decision.
You can take that off the Christmas list. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's not happening. Yeah.
Yeah. So we really have to be definitely more aware of not only what we're allowing our children to be influenced by, but even by some of the things that we're influenced by, some of the things that we watch and we listen to and we get involved with, so that, even our own traumas, we're not passing it down to our children and our grandchildren. So, Coach, I'm gonna let you have the last word. First of all, let me say again, thank you so very much for being on. Right?
Thank you for having me. Yes.
Yeah, no problem. So I thank you for being on. I'm gonna let you have the last word. I want you to, leave us with something, whatever you decide, a word of advice, word of inspiration, or whatever comes to your mind, and definitely give us your social media handles and let us know where we can get your book and things like that. So I'll let you think about that real quick. To my listeners, I told you guys that I would let you know how you can win $100 from the podcast. And since you asked for it, here it is. In order to win $100 from the podcast, you need to enter our $100 super subscriber contest, right? Very simple. All you have to do is subscribe to our YouTube page, right? Subscribe to our Facebook page and subscribe to our podcast on Spotify. You have to subscribe to all three to be able to be in the super subscriber contest. Then after you have subscribed to all three, then you text the word WIN to 866-326-0730. That's 866-326-0730 to qualify to win $100. The contest is random. So I do it every once in a while. Whenever I feel like it, I can do it today. I can do it tomorrow, whenever. And it's ongoing. So it never ends. So it don't matter when you do it, when you subscribe. I will ask that you subscribe now, right? So you can get in the game. But whenever you decide to do it. But that's how you do it. You can win $100 from the podcast as being a super subscriber. Again, you just have to subscribe to our YouTube channel, subscribe to our Facebook page, and our podcast on Spotify, and then text the word WIN to 866-326-0730. and you can win $100. So, Coach, I'm going to let you have the last word. Again, thank you so very much for taking out your time for being here. Again, you could have been doing anything else, but you were here with us, and I definitely appreciate it. So I'll let you have the last word. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much again. It was an honor being here tonight. And I just wanted to leave with this. I wanted to just say that for anyone out there right now that's going through anything, you are not, and let me repeat that again, you are not your diagnosis. You are not what you are called. You do not have to subscribe to what anyone calls you. You are who you call yourself. You are God, who is, who God has caused you to be. So once you recognize what that is, then you'll be able to walk in your purpose. My book, Beauty from Ashes, can be found on Amazon. I can be located on Instagram at Nikkia, Nikkia Tisby, Tisaby. You can find more about Human Network on Facebook, HU''MEND network. And you can also visit us at www.humannetwork.com. If you have any questions or concerns, or if you're in need of counsel, my email address is coachky@humannetwork.com.
All right. We can't do it no better than that. Thank you guys once again for tuning in to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. And my mission is to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill, to deal with your problems, to heal from the pain, and to fulfill your purpose. And this is Earnest James. Until next time, we will see you guys next week. Be blessed. Hey guys, I know you're enjoying the podcast. However, don't forget to join our text line at 866-326-0730. That's 866-326-0730 in order to receive text messages with new events and things that is going on and new episodes as they release. All right, see you in a minute. Thanks for listening to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. Remember to listen, like, subscribe, and share. This episode has been brought to you by Deal to Heal Teas. Put some inspiration in your situation. Wear an inspirational tea and be inspired all day. Let's go to dealtohealteas.myshopify.com. Remember, our mission is to help you to deal, heal, and fulfill. Deal with your problem, heal from the pain, and fulfill your purpose. Thanks for listening.